in my world, in the money world, I always talk about people that there's the poor, the debtors, the dreamers, the accumulators, and the rich but empties. And it is not a linear line. Happiness and joy and what I call real wealth does not necessarily come because you have financial wealth. I know plenty of people that have millions and millions of dollars that are so unhappy. And because they've negotiated themselves away and they weren't authentic all those years, right? And this is the problem. Hey, everybody, welcome to another Awaken Your Relationships. I am Julie Murphy, and we either work things out and we act it out, and we do it through our money, through our health, and our relationships. And Rita and I have been talking for quite some time about the relationships because I find that when you fix the money stuff, then it shows up in your relationships or your health. And if you fix your health or your relationships, it shows up in your money. And so we do this dance in our emotional processing system is really what it boils down to. So it's like if we can start to recognize where things are coming out at and they're acting out, then we can actually get to the core of what's creating those behaviors so that you can heal and move forward. So don't forget to hit that subscribe, like, and notification bell, not only on my channel, but also Rita's channel, please, because we are here to help people get to a life that they absolutely love. And today we're gonna, can I have a witness? You know, I keep thinking about it's like we have to witness others in our relationships.
Well, it starts with me thinking about confession. Being raised Catholic, confession was a big deal, but confession was not a big deal to me because the priest was buddies with my dad. And so there's always this feeling of I can't tell my dad's buddy my deepest, darkest secrets. How are you supposed to do that? How are you supposed to do it? But the Catholics in that way had it right. Whereas when you have someone witness the darkest parts of you without any judgment, without any, stabbing you in the back, just neutral. When you have somebody witness what's going on, a healing happens. Because you're able to fully express yourself and be vulnerable, even in your dysfunction.
Totally.
And have it be okay. So witnessing, just being present and seeing what's going on without putting your own spin on it, without figuring it out, without having an opinion and having to post it on, Facebook or
and talk
none
to
of that.
different people and get their opinions.
What do you think? And how do I fit? And do you agree with me? And do you not agree with me? When you, and this is a story I told you before we hopped on, which was, there was a long period of time where I did not get along with my family and I dreaded holidays, but I was still on my spiritual path. I just hadn't worked on that part yet.
Sure.
And, so I knew that the issues were mine, but I still felt like I was stressed out and anxious. And so we would have these holidays and I was trying to develop a closer relationship with my dad because it's always been, rocky because he was, just life. People are different. And so I drink, not a lot, but, I'd have it and my husband would bartend me up something and, maybe make a margarita and I'd share with my mom and whatever. And I'd have like 2 drinks, but I would say to myself, now remember, you're impaired. So what you think is right is probably not right.
A drunken man's words are a sober man's truth.
Right. So don't, in this place, you need to just not act on those impulses. You need to not act on the words that come into your head and that you want to say, the joke you want to make and the button you want to push. And no, those are bad ideas because you are impaired.
Yeah. And
when I would recognize that would put me into a witness state where I don't know what's going on, which means that I need to see what's going on and make sense of this. And when you witness someone like that, like the priest witnesses you, like, I don't know why you're so messed up, but let's listen a little more to your story and see where you're at. It's the same thing for you, and for all of us. We have to look at them and say, I really don't know why you're behaving this way. I don't like it, so that's what I'm going to do for me. I'm going to do what I need to do for me. But I really don't know why this is happening. All I know is that I feel this way and I need to take care of it. Yeah. So when you're anxious, stressed, upset, irritated, even if it's justified, even if somebody came up to you and pretended to be somebody they weren't, or pretended to be nice, and you can see right through them. You see right through their mask. Right. You know exactly what they're doing. And you are self-righteously justified in doing whatever you feel you need to do. Right. I want you to stop and say to yourself, I'm impaired. I need to just calm down and listen and observe what's going on so I can get the real story. Yes, this person is being fake. No, it's not fun. And no, I can't trust them. However, I'm going to observe. And that's when you get into your intuition. When you observe, you can feel what's going on and make good decisions. If you're observing, if you're trying to figure it out, why did they do this? And they're doing this again. And what am I going to do?
I always say you can respond or you can react. And so when you're starting to build a story, that means you're reacting. You're not actually responding.
Exactly. That's exactly it. But it's the hardest thing to do because you can't stop reacting. You're going to react either way. You can't stop it. All you can do is put in habits and things around you, like write in your hand, I can't be trusted, like don't trust everything that you say in your head. Question it, observe it, say, is this really what's going on? Is this really how I want to handle this situation? And when you just pause, even for a few seconds, and get yourself back to that center, then you'll see the whole picture, not just the trigger that keeps being pushed over and over by the same jerk that, is living unconsciously. Stop suffering.
Well, and even stay out of the judgment of the jerk who's living unconsciously, right? So I'm even witnessing, like, when I would normally say something like that, now I'm like, it doesn't really matter to even give it a label. Like, it just doesn't, like, oh gosh, okay, well, because it's kind of shifting from having to judge it or blame it to now just like being like, oh God, I wish you all the best. Like, I'm glad that's not my world, but.
And I'm going to take one step further. The step past that is, what's the opportunity in this moment? When you
I say that to people all the time when they're fired from their jobs or laid off. I'm like, this is awesome. And they go, how is this awesome? I'm like, you have a huge opportunity here. Some reason, some way, your world was supposed to shift. And now you have like a meteor that just went boom. And you know what? You're supposed to go to this next place. You're supposed to go to whatever this is. And they kind of look at me like, huh? I go, we do not realize how much our perspective on things creates the next thing.
Yes.
And if we could really start to kind of shift our perspective and go, oh, I do this group coaching program that every quarter I start up another group. And I had this woman on there this week, and she had talked to me about how she's so triggered by her cousin. And I go, that's awesome. And she's like, what? I go,
I know.
Yeah, because we uncovered what her childhood trauma was.
Yes.
And the relationship with her cousin was the triggering was the opportunity for that wound to heal inside of her. And we walked through how that was reality. I said, you know what you need to do this week is I need you to go to lunch with your cousin and have her trigger the shit out of you. And you sit there and just witness it and observe it and be like, interesting. I go, and watch where inside your body you're lighting up like a Christmas tree. And you're just going, and just sit there and let it trigger the crap out of you. And just like, interesting. I said, because those triggers, you're going to be shown exactly where in your body you're storing that trauma from your sister dying when she was 6 months old. And somehow in your 3-year-old body, it wired inside of you that you're trying to wake your cousin up because you couldn't wake your baby sister up because she died. And I go, this is beautiful practice. This is beautiful opportunity. And it was all of a sudden, because those are just stored emotions inside. And, and then that, when you start to shine the light on those things and you sit in those triggers and you actually sit there and let it trigger the hell out of you, it actually allows those emotions in your physical body to come up and out so you stop doing it anymore. Now, I realized this week that, I'm getting this tingling in my fingers. And I'm like, oh, I realize it's because I need a good cry. And Julie doesn't do that. Like, I chalk it up and I keep going. Well, when that came into my being this week and I could sit there and observe my, like, projection of what was going on inside myself, because I knew I needed to, but I wasn't, and I was just kind of keep chalking it up. I had an opportunity, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm sitting there and boyfriend's like, I don't know, and I go, it's all me, it's 100% me. And then all of a sudden, like, and he's like just witnessing. Thank God he was in the witness seat. Because I go, it's nothing to do with you. As the tears are coming, I'm like, I just know this needs to come out. And he's like, are you done? I'm like, for now.
But what's even better, and this takes it to the, sensual Rita woman space. What's even, so this is in alignment with that whole sex thing, okay? So imagine you were crying and crying and crying and crying and crying, and somebody gave you a kitten. So we can either cry and have a pity party, which is not what you did. No, I'm not saying that's what you did. We can cry and just use it as a neutral release.
Right.
Or we can try and use it as an opportunity to place a positive trigger in our brain by making a positive association with the situation by doing something that brings you joy.
Right.
And you can do it all at once. It's very efficient time-wise.
Right. Well, and so that whole thing was, I was just standing there and all of a sudden then I had a hug at the end of it. And it was just like, okay, I'm in a safe place. Voila. And the whole rest of the day was amazing. And so when we can sit and witness, then it triggers our own stuff inside, which is why we want to talk to everybody and go out, because we're avoiding that feeling.
Exactly, because it's so uncomfortable, because it's the unknown. You don't know what's really happening, and you're kind of white knuckling it until the situation changes. I'd like to give people a visual or a perspective of, if you were standing at the edge of the universe and you see in front of you the galaxies and the black holes and everything, they're all moving in this sync in their own rhythm based on gravity, based on how close they are to another thing, based on time or flow, or, and you realize that you have no control over anything except how you want to capitalize on the opportunities which are being presented to you every moment. And if you focus that high level intention, you will zip through all the poor me.
Yep.
All the I need an emotional release. And you'll go right to directing that energy as it's coming out of you in a positive, manifesting, strong wavelength that sends out into the universe what you want.
And that's like, literally, we don't need to spend any time whatsoever in this place of trying to figure out and fix it and all that other stuff. No. We just have to just literally just go, whatever, and plug into what you want to create.
Right. And find a kitten.
Because the rest of it is just a distraction.
Just a distraction. We have too many things
to do. The rest is just a distraction.
Just a distraction. Exactly.
And so the question is how do you want to do it? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much more fun creating. I said to my son yesterday when he transitioned to my house, he was super feisty. I was going, hey, everybody, let's stay in witnessing and not play the game with Michael here. Michael's got something that's going on inside, and he's super feisty. Can everyone see that? He's like, no, I'm not. And I'm like, we love you, Michael. And I said, and we're going to hold a safe space as a family. I go, so can everyone love Michael the most and just sit here and let Michael be in whatever he's in? And when he comes at you, and no matter what he says, no matter what he does, like, just know it's not about you and that it's about what's going on inside of Michael. And that's okay. And just let him be in his space. And he's like, I'm not, and he was just, that just triggered him even beyond belief. And I said, hun, do you want a hug? He's like, no, and it eventually, just by all of us, because I figured this out last week, that if I could plant the seed with my kids to witness what was going on in the feisty kid. Last week it was Bridget. Yesterday it was Michael. There's a lot of us in this house. And I said, just know anything that comes at you is not about you. And I witnessed my children, they're like little sponges, kids. They literally and they were given lots of opportunities last week with Bridget and this week with Michael, and next week it'll be Michael or Mary Kate or Timmy, who knows, right? And then the time period, I've learned, shrinks really fast. And then I'm just like, Michael, what would you like to create? I just kept asking him, Michael, what do you want to create? And it was, nah, 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 nah. And then eventually he comes to me with this game, Don't Break the Ice. And he's like, I want to have fun. I want to play this game. I'm like, great. And so we literally then all of a sudden it was poop. And then what was interesting is he slept like 14 hours last night. And he never cried, never anything, but whatever it was.
Everybody's different. Everybody processes it differently. It was
like, like he was cracking some ice in that game, But it was really interesting. And I almost feel like if you think about whether you're at work or if you're with your friends, if you can really stay in that witness seat and just sit there and go, oh, this coming at me, I don't need to respond. I don't need to react. And, I saw someone yesterday and the same thing. And they were witnessing that they were super feisty. And I go, well, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And I'm like, oh, this is shifting in your life. How do you feel about that? And they go, and then all of a sudden the tears came out. It
right.
was like, and it was.
Well, and I'd like to add one more layer to that, which is, a lot of women end up in the trap of being victimized because they feel sorry for somebody.
Ugh.
Or because they aren't taught to protect themselves. They aren't taught that what they want matters.
Right.
They aren't taught that they have strength and power and a voice. Right. And so when someone doesn't have empathy, it's very good to teach them to be neutral at that moment. But when someone has too much empathy, it's very good to teach them to have empathy and compassion for themselves.
Totally.
So they don't put themselves in a situation where they're victimized over and over. Mm-hmm. Brene Brown talks about the women she knows who has the most compassion are the ones who have the best boundaries, because they don't allow someone to beat them up, leaving them lost and tired and exhausted and overwhelmed and not able to get anything done. They have compassion. They watch what's going on, but they also don't allow someone to keep driving the truck over them.
Right. Yeah. So true. It's so true. And it just comes with those boundaries, right? And holding boundaries.
And if you witness, then you know what boundaries to set, because you're not coming from some past thing. You're able to say, oh, I need to set this boundary here. And then you end up setting it earlier so it's more effective rather than waiting until it's the last ditch effort. And of course, it's not going to work.
And I will also say that so often when you've negotiated yourself away for so long, you actually don't know what you really actually want to even hold the boundary. So when you hold, even if it's a weak boundary, because I always tell people, like, it's okay to build the muscle. You didn't know how to do it, so you're learning how to do it. So if you hold that boundary, well, then it's like, okay, I'm holding the boundary. Now, where does it go to the next place? Because you're going to start to understand, like, I'm at a place now where I have zero tolerance for anything that's not in alignment with my authenticity. Like Julie cannot no longer not be Julie anymore. Like I can't negotiate, I can't people please, I can't fix it for you, and sitting in that space in a loving way, because what I've come to realize that I want to share with everyone is that when you don't show up in your uniqueness and your authenticity and holding those strong boundaries because it's not okay with you on your inside, guess what? You have profound freedom when you actually show up authentically you. So if you don't feel like you have this profound sense of freedom in your life, it's because you're not showing up authentically. Because
Right.
when you're trying to find lasting joy and happiness, like inside, you know, that only comes from you being authentic. That's it. That's it. The problem is we've all pigeonholed ourselves into lifestyles. We've pigeonholed ourselves thinking that there's no other way but this relationship that I'm in or this employer relationship that I'm in. Like you think those are the all, but you're negotiating yourself away over and over again. And you really have to just continue to find that profound sense of freedom. And that only comes from being authentic. You know, there in my world, in the money world, I always talk about people that there's the poor, the debtors, the dreamers, the accumulators, and the rich but empties. And it is not a linear line. Happiness and joy and what I call real wealth does not necessarily come because you have financial wealth. I know plenty of people that have millions and millions of dollars that are so unhappy. And because they've negotiated themselves away and they weren't authentic all those years, right? And this is the problem.
Well, and I think a lot of people don't understand what boundaries actually look like. You know, most people think boundaries are, you have to stop hitting me in the face.
Right.
You know, and my boundary, the boundary that I've been working on probably the last week and a half, and it's the boundary that I repeat like a mantra over and over in my head when I need to regulate, but my body's not happy. My body's uncomfortable, sad, anxious, worried, upset. This is my boundary. I'm a generous and warm-hearted woman surrounded by generous and warm-hearted people, supported by generous and warm-hearted men and women who love, honor, and respect me, who I love, honor, and respect, with a Midas touch over all of it. And I really love that thought. And I'm grateful that it's true.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So that's my boundary. My boundary is I want to be a generous and compassionate, generous, heart-centered woman. I want to be surrounded by people who are generous and heart-centered, and I want to be supported by people who are generous and heart-centered. And I want to treat them as the sacred person that they are, as well as have them treat and look at me as the sacred person that I am. And I want to hold gratitude for that, and a higher emotion of love and thankfulness. And so if anything is below that, it's not my standard.
Right. Right.
Including me.
Right.
If I'm not the generous and compassionate woman that I want to be, then I'm not holding myself to my same standard and my own boundary of what I want in my life.
Right. Yep. And that's where it comes to extreme self-love and self-care. And it's okay if you disappoint other people. It's okay if you're not, people don't want you to change because you're showing up in your life for their life. But they need to show up for themselves in their own lives, just like you have to show up for yourself in your own life.
And you don't find out until somebody pushes you to the wall and you say, nothing I've been doing has been working. I literally need to try something different. Those have been the biggest pieces, the biggest transformations in my life. The first one, which was, I am completely 110% responsible for everything that I feel. And when I took that on, I was able to break the chemical addiction to many of my emotions.
Right.
And then the next big blow up I had, I realized I had to be 110% responsible for every thought that went into my head. And it needed to be the highest order of thinking. And I'm responsible for that. And that's when I started to really dig down into what do I want to create and what can I say in my head? What can I say to myself?
Right.
That will wire me to create that in my life.
And this all comes from a place of, if you can't be in a place of witnessing others so that you don't participate in others'
Yes.
things that's going on inside of them, you can't get to that place for yourself.
Yes, you've got
So,
no breathing room until you moved out into that hotel.
right, right, right. That's true. Like, it could be physical space like I did. That's what I did to get my breathing space so that I could witness it. I moved into a hotel. And you just have to continue to keep doing that. You know,
Yeah, it's
that's no
10,000
different.
steps.
Right. And it's no different than me holding boundaries and, I only communicate through a divorce software. Right. And it's like, those are the boundaries, because I'm not going outside of that, because once I go outside of that, then other things trigger. And it's like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just not.
And that's when we start to grow. When we literally say to ourselves for the umpteenth time, and this time we mean it, I'm not doing this anymore. And when you make that decision, you're not doing it anymore, you're breaking away from the past, and you're starting to get into that space where you're planting seeds and watering and fertilizing for the future. You're creating something rather than being victimized by the complex life and universe and things that are going on and invisible forces that are everywhere. You're impaired. We're impaired. We have to recognize that and go back to center so that we can see things clearly.
Yeah. And again, I just think it's important to, if you start to come up with like judgments about what you've created up to this point, like, you really have to like let those go. Because it
Yeah,
really doesn't even matter that you're impaired. It doesn't even matter if you're like, um, whatever,
right.
too fat, too skinny, wasted a
Right.
lot of time. None of that matters.
None of it
It just
matters.
matters. So, because if you think about all those things, or you talk about all those things from your past, then all you're doing is recreating in the present moment, and then you're creating the future based on that. And that's not what
Right.
you want to create. So
Right.
it's
It's
about
not.
like, where do you want to unplug and then plug in?
We only have so many receptors in our conscious mind. Our conscious mind, our identity, we like to say is like 2 to 3 tablespoons of gray matter. That's it. But we've got a whole body, we've got a whole community, we're connected to everybody, but we only work from these couple tablespoons of gray matter. So we have to get it all into alignment. And you only have so many resources, so many receptors in your brain. You can either use them to keep retreading the same path of this isn't fair, this isn't right, or why am I
Right.
helpless, or why is this happening to me, or I'm so uncomfortable. Or you can use those resources to focus on the highest value things, which is, I am capable, I am smart, I want to be surrounded by generous and compassionate people. You can either be on the path or you can be dysregulated and messed up. It's like your only 2 options.
Well, and even if you're dysregulated, I don't know,
Doesn't matter.
there's an acceptance piece here, that no matter
Yeah.
where you're at, you have to accept your humanity. You have
Yes.
to accept the parts of you that are imperfect. You have to
Yep.
accept the fact that you're just staying grounded, and it's like, or not grounded, or like in crazy land, or whatever that
Yeah.
is.
Whatever it is, it just
Because,
is.
yeah. And because with any of those attachments of judgments or what it is, then that's when you're back in your shit. You're
Right.
back in like, but it's really just about like going, I just wake up and create. I just wake up and create and just wake up and create. And like, what do we want to create today? Okay. Well, this is what I want to create today. Okay. Well, how are we going to move through that? Okay. Well, let's do that. And
Right.
just continue to try to find that place.
Very practical. And when you have habits in place where every morning you ask yourself these questions, every morning you reflect on, what happened for the day, and or you think about what your day is going to be like and how you want it to go. When you have these habits in place, then it's a no-brainer, and you can spend your time with something else.
Like, I always create a phrase, and I'll read you mine right now. It says, I will find everything I need. It is time. I am ready. I am to find that which I need to find so that I can successfully physically move, put my children in a school that is best for them in the location.
Yep. And that's your boundary.
And it's like, okay, so I literally verbally say that out loud every day because that's what I am creating.
10,000 steps.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because it takes a little while to unplug from that old hardwiring we have and to plug into a new neural net. And it takes some willpower and some support and crystals and oils and good friends and puppies. You know, it takes all those things to unplug and plug into the joy that's all around us.
Right. Exactly. And so it's just about how do we really want to then take that and move it forward, right? And it's a constant evolution. I think that's the other thing. Because once you start, I call it, once you build the muscle as to this is now what I want to create. Okay, now what do I want to open up to? And just continuing to do that expansion, because something that you thought of 3 months ago that you wanted, because if you've not quit your job and you're sitting there going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and then you finally quit your job, you've just cracked open your world. And the things that you were blocking authentically being in the world, you're kind of going, well, I got through that one. What else can I get through?
That's exactly what happens. And it's called self-efficacy. It's where you realize that you can be dumped in the middle of the Amazon jungle, naked and afraid, and you're still able to get to the other side 2 months later and survive, and nobody hates you, and you're at Walmart. You know,
so it works out.
Yeah, if you believe it works out, then you develop the ability to work it out.
Correct.
You know, and so you have to give yourself enough support and happy experiences so that you can have the space to breathe. So you can work it out. If you don't take that time, if you don't take days and hours and weeks and months and more time than you ever thought possible loving yourself, you're going to be stuck. It takes way more self-love than people even imagine. You're like, well, I love myself. Why isn't it better? Because you've just spent the majority of your life hating yourself, and you come from a lineage of people who hate themselves. Cut yourself some slack and go on a vacation.
It's so true. And just do. I can't believe you just said that. Because it just hit me in the head going, just take that vacation, Jewel.
Yes. And
because I've been thinking about it. I'm like sitting here thinking of all the responsible reasons why I shouldn't or I shouldn't. I'm going, no, that's the life I want to create. So we're going to go there.
Create the life you want every day, every moment, every step. And so you look back and you go, oh, look at that. I did that. Huh. Interesting.
So true. Oh, Rita, you're amazing. Absolutely love the heck out of you. And
thanks.
How do people reach you? Because when it comes to relationships, you've nailed it. And people need a lot of help here.
Yeah, they do. Well, they can find me at RitaHickmanCoaching.com. That's where you can find general information. If you need help, like you're stuck with something and you need tutorials, find me on YouTube. Just type in Rita Hickman, and I've got like 15 years of videos on there. If you want to be involved in these monthly programs I release monthly healings around different areas of our life. May was boundaries. We've got one more day for boundaries. And then I'm starting to work on June, which is going to be releasing your dad issues. And so I'm working on it. I'm cogitating, I'm putting it together. And it's a healing where you take people through that trigger, regulate in a safe space. So that you can start to get that stress off of your system, to be proactive about it. And if people if people listen to it, it's only an hour, but if people follow the exercises every day, even just for a couple weeks, they'll find that they're less reactive, they're lighter, that they are happier more often, people get along with them better, that they're better problem solvers, because what we think is our dad's fault for June is really just held emotions in our body we need to get rid of, and we need to unplug from the story.
Yep. Beautiful. And if anyone wants to join me on my group coaching, I'll have another one that actually starts up in the latter part of the summer. JulieMurphy.com, and registration is going to be starting soon. So I look forward to helping everyone on their journey And as always, you get my book, Awaken Your Wealth, at awakenyourwealthbook.com for free. You just have to pay for shipping. And we'll be soon coming out with my book, The Emotion Behind Money, in the same format. So you can get it for free. You just have to pay for your own shipping. But thanks, everybody. Have the best day ever. Bye.
Bye, Miigwech.